I just want to check it out quickly. Just give me a second.
No worries.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining Open Mic. It's a Sunday afternoon. We're on our second talk for today. So I just want to welcome Jason. Thank you so much for joining.
What's up, everyone? For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jason Schutte. I'm 23 years old. I currently live in Joburg in Pretoria, and I'm a self-employed entrepreneur present.
All right. Thank you so much for joining, Jason. I mean, today's topic, you named it, swim or sink, or sink or swim.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And taking the time on a Sunday afternoon and, coming to open mic and sharing your views. I mean, we have Amina on, we have Rudo on. Thank you guys for joining. We had Rudo, before, and she done a phenomenal job on her topic. So thank you so much, Rudo. Appreciate it. Thank you, Amina, for joining. I do appreciate everyone that's taking the time. So let's go through it. Let's go through your topic.
Yeah, okay. So I decided on sink or swim as the topic. Nice, apt way to describe it shortly. It relates to, well, what I'm trying to speak about is starting and managing a business while you're in varsity, and the hurdles that come with it, some of the things that you might not consider, some of the things you should definitely consider, and some of the ways that you can make it possible.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So let's go through it, right? Go for it.
So, I mean, a bit of context on my business. I started in 2016. I sell vintage and thrifted clothing. The name of the business is Redo Clothing Company. Redo spelled Redux.
Okay.
So it's the French pronunciation of redux, and it just means to give new life to something, to breathe new life into things, which is what I would say I'm doing with majority of the clothing that I'm selling. And I mean, I started in 2016. It was a passion project, essentially. It began private sales of me finding secondhand clothing. Then I wear it. Then my friends were saying, hey, where'd you get that? I'd like to buy it from you. And then after a couple of months, constant requests, etc., I thought to myself, maybe this could be a bit of a business opportunity for me. So in May of 2016, that was my first year of varsity, I decided I'm actually going to just launch it. I'm going to just do it. So I opened an Instagram page, which at that point was called Golden Days Vintage.
Okay.
I launched the Instagram page. I told all my friends, kind of help me advertise it, just post it on your stories, etc. Very organic. And I think it was the 23rd of May, I released my first stock drop. I think it was roughly 20 items. And within a week, they had all sold out. So I thought to myself, wow, okay, this isn't a bad idea. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a bunch more stock and I released it again. And similar story, within 10 days, I think it had all sold out again. So, then at that point, I mean, I didn't really think anything of the business. And I mean, that's one point I want to make for people that are trying to do this in varsity, to not overthink it and to not overthink what it's going to become or what you want it to become, to just do it as it is, to take your idea, however small it is, and to just work on it as much as you can, and at whatever size it is. Because for me, the fact that I was working on it organically, I was going through the motions naturally as I deemed fit, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And now at this point we have I think we have 2,400 followers, somewhere there, which isn't exactly huge, but we have I have a very, very loyal, engaged customer base. I mean, there must be about 150 customers that are regulars. They're always chatting to me. They're telling me what they want. The odd guy or girl, if they ask me for something specifically, recently I got a request for Yankees merchandise, so now I'm on the hunt for that specific customer.
So, okay, so I'm just curious, how do you get the merchandise? How do you source the merchandise?
Well, okay, so I mean, no one really tells their sources.
Okay.
No, but I mean, to give you a broad overview, it's all secondhand clothing that's coming into the country through Mozambique, because we have an import ban against secondhand clothing in South Africa. It began in 96.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
It was a result of trade unions. They were complaining that the sale of secondhand clothing in South Africa, we can sell it cheaper than what they can produce it here. And subsequently, they said it was killing our textile and clothing manufacturing industries.
Okay.
And yeah, there's merit to that. There's merit to that conversation as well. You know, I do understand that. However, the places that I source, you know, deep CBD in Joburg, I mean, I'm one of the very few, you know, if any, white people shopping there, you know, and the items are incredibly cheap, sold. I mean, it's nothing like a retail environment. It's very informal market. And I am, you know, I'm one of the younger people. I'm more often it's older black women, older black men. I mean, very often it's older black men looking for suits. You know, they've got 100 Rand to go and buy a blazer top and a pair of nice chinos for a job interview or something. So the argument of killing the textile industry, it makes sense. However, there are people that rely on these sources of secondhand clothing, surely for financial means. You know, they can't afford to go and buy something brand new. They have 100 Rand to go and buy a full suit, and that's where they get it.
And people can't afford it, right? I mean, to your point that you just mentioned right now, people can't afford it. They want to they want to present themselves in a way where, you know, what suits their budget and what suits their pocket right now. And if you have a look at the economy right now, it's also not in the best shape and best size. And people want to look at more affordability versus, you know, going to a shop and buying something off a rack of 300 Rand or so, right? Yes, exactly. So okay. And would you consume, like, let's say if I have to give you something, would you resell that to someone else?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So this year, I mean, now that you speak of that, this year I introduced the consignment model to the business. So it works on the basis of, I mean, I take, for instance, if you want to sell, let's say you're looking to sell a pair of Levi's jeans that you no longer want or you no longer fit into for whatever reason, you want to get rid of them, but you don't want to undertake the task of selling them yourself, maybe because you don't have the correct follower base, or maybe you just don't want the hassle of dealing with someone says, hey, I want to buy these now, you need to get them couriered, etc. So you approach me, you say, listen, I want to sell these. Then what I'll do is I'll essentially value them. I'll tell you what you'll be paid out upon their sale, subject to sale. So for instance, the jeans, I'll say that you'll receive 250 Rand subject to sale. And once you get them to me, you don't have to think about them again until you receive an EFT. So, you know, it's the case of I'm playing middleman, and I'm trying to almost encourage people to go through their cupboards, because I know for a fact I'm a clothing hoarder, and you know, I use my business as a crutch. I mean, my mom's always on my case because my cupboards are really overflowing, and I always say, well, you know, I run a clothing shop, and so I'm allowed to collect. I'm allowed to hoard. You know? But I have friends who have, I mean, that's a poor excuse, but I have friends that have no excuse. You know, they've got stuff in their cupboards that I know that they haven't worn for 3 months. And that essentially becomes a rule for me. If I haven't worn it in 3 months, I'm happy to sell it. You know, it's the case of I'm not going to miss it. So I might as well put a little bit of cash on it, clear up some space in my cupboard. And it might just, more so, it might be that something that you might not value anymore, it might be exactly what someone else has been looking for.
You know, you're talking to the converted here, right? Because there's so much of stuff that just lies in my wardrobe. It just sits there. It just sits there. I'm serious, guys. The people that's online right now, please correct me if I'm wrong. How many of you have stuff lying in your wardrobes right now? Guys, Rudo, Amina, whoever's watching, we have people that's on. How much of clothes that's sitting in your wardrobe right now that just lies there? You haven't touched it in months. That's me. I have a lot of stuff that's just, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You're only doing adults. Have you never thought about children's?
Well, the thing with children's is more a case of, firstly, it's not actually that easy to find. More often than not, the stuff that we find that's secondhand and it's children's, it's quite grotty. It will either have stains or tears, etc. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we find, it's happened to, I mean, everyone that deals in this business, all of my friends that run shops like myself, it's happened to all of us at least once, where you pick up something and you think, yes, amazing, I'm definitely going to sell this. And you turn it around, or you look at the sleeve and there's a huge hole, there's a massive tear, there's a huge stain. So for me, that would be the one aspect of it. Secondly, it would just be that my audience isn't such that it would be conducive to moving it. Because I would imagine, I mean, I'm a far way away from having children, but it would be the parents, it would be the parents buying clothing on behalf of their kids. And I almost think that's not the audience that I have, nor is it the audience that I target. I mean, I'm actually, at the moment, the consignment model works amazingly with parents, because I mean, I have uncles, aunts, and even older cousins that say, oh, you know, I mean, I see something in their cupboard and I say, so when last did you wear that? No, well, you know, a couple of months back. And I say, well, why don't we move that to someone that will actually wear it, you know, rather that.
Oh, so I have to be,
yeah,
I would have to be afraid if you have to come here.
Well, I mean, and I happily now, I mean, when it comes to like personal contact, I happily say, listen, let's organize a date, a time. I'll come to your house and I will raid your cupboard. And I'll tell you everything in there that I think I could sell, calculate it, tell you what you'll be paid out if you know, subject to sale. And if it's worth it, you put it in a black bag and I leave with it. And, you know, your cupboard's less cluttered and you have to wait a couple of weeks and you receive an EFT. So I'd like to think I'm doing people a bit of a favor, and I'm doing the clothing justice by actually giving it to people that are going to wear it.
I think you would be doing me a favor. So I think Rudo also, she says she's guilty. Rudo says she's guilty. Listen, I'm guilty as well. So you've got 2 new clients. Oh
no, Rudo's always on the ball as far as me releasing clothing, saying, hey, is there anything in extra small or small for me? You know.
All right, cool.
But yeah, so I mean, the business had started, I mean, really humble beginnings. I mean, I remember having 100 followers and 200 followers, and, you know, hitting 1,000 and thinking, wow, you know, this is incredible now. And I remember, you know, selling to people, and in the beginning, I would deliver to them in my car. You know, I didn't do deliveries to Cape Town or Durban. I was only working in Gauteng. And if someone was in Pretoria, I would organize a date and I would drive to them in Pretoria. And if someone was in Joburg, I'd organize a date and drive to them in Joburg. Then, of course, you know, once Cape Town and Durban became a bit of a, you know, a bit more of a audience for me, then I started using couriers. Now I'm at that point where I'm using a courier, but I'm still operating solely off Instagram, which, you know, I think for a lot of people, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I think for a lot of people, you start a business and you immediately think, okay, so I need to get a website going, and now I need to get someone to design said website. I need someone to, you know, do my logo for me. And now you're incurring cost. You're getting things very complicated before you've even begun. You know, which for me, that's another piece of advice. Just, you know, start with what you know. I was very familiar with Instagram. Subsequently, that's where I launched the shop, and it works really well. You know, it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. It's a visual platform, and clothing is a visual thing. So, you know, that it works pretty well. And I didn't pay people to design my logo. I mean, that's another thing from my mentor. He just said to me, he's an entrepreneur. He started and closed multiple businesses. And he said to me, you know, to be an entrepreneur, it's incredibly important that you be a Swiss Army knife. You know, you can't be, okay, I'm the business side, I get the stock. However, I need to rely on someone to do my graphic design. In the beginning, you can't afford those overheads. You know, you can't afford to pay a graphic designer 1,000 Rand to design your logo, which you most likely could have done yourself had you just been willing to self-teach, you know. So for me, that was another big learning curve. I mean, with the rebrand recently to Redo, I had to, I mean, he said to me, you know, he'll give me the software, but I need to do it myself. And I said, oh, you know, that's quite a task. You know, it was nerve-wracking in the beginning. I thought to myself, shucks, I'm rebranding this thing, and now it's all on my head to make it look visually appealing, to make the logo stand out. And he just told me, you know, look at YouTube, look at tutorials, and just mess around with the software until you feel comfortable enough, and I can guarantee you that you'll create something that you're happy with. And I did, 2 weeks after having gotten the software, I just played around. Well, every day since I got it, I played around every day, messing around with fonts and different effects, going to YouTube, making a mistake, learning from it. And 2 weeks later, I had my logo sorted. A couple of days after that, I had multiple vector designs for my stickers. And that was just literally trial, error, YouTube tutorial, back to the program.
Yep.
And now that I look back, I mean, I got quotes on, logo design and for design for my stickers. And I mean, I was being quoted, roughly 1,000 Rand for what would have been an hour's work. And
Yep.
at the time I thought, maybe it's worth it to just pay the 1,000 and get the logo. But now that I look back, I think to myself, I'm so glad that I just did trial and error, because now at least, I made the logo. It's exactly what I wanted. And I didn't pay someone for something that could have ended up being subpar or not what I wanted, So that's another incredibly important thing. I think there are some things where leave it to the professionals. I mean, I'm not expecting myself to learn how to code a website, for instance. But some things, especially the visual side of things, Photoshop, etc. I think for a business, making logos, making, promotional imagery, it's definitely worthwhile getting the software, tinkering around, and just figuring out how to do it yourself, as opposed to relying on someone, because then that's a constant that never stops. It's, I need something else done, now I need to pay again. Whereas if you just teach yourself in the beginning and you work through it, you develop the ability to build bigger and better things. So when you want something bigger and better, you at least know, okay, I've done it before, I can do it again, let me start learning.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of people that genuinely are not at the point where they can do that, right?
Yes,
you find people that they're not creative enough to do so. You have and people, they're really not that creative to do so. So they need somebody that has creative thinking or creative expressions, or can see something that they can't see. People have blockages, and for whatever reason they may have the blockages. So I think the learning that you've had in creating your own logo is by trying, failing, and getting to a point where it has much more meaning for yourself.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
you created something from scratch.
Yes, certainly. But
it's very different. That's very different.
No,
not a lot of people can do that.
No, well, I mean, when I began doing it, I couldn't do it. I was failing more than I was succeeding when it came to that. But I mean, also relating to that point, I mean, it would be wrong of me to not, mention how this mentor of mine, this guy that mentors me, I mean, he made that, he made all of that make sense to me. Without him, I wouldn't have even attempted it. I would have gone straight to paying someone to do it. I didn't, in the beginning, I didn't think I had the creativity or, the mind to kind of put that together and make it something that would really stand out. And, I was overthinking it. I was truly overthinking it. I was really going into such depth. This would be the logo, and here's the symbol, and et cetera, et cetera. And he said to me, just, it doesn't need to be that complicated. I mean, I have an affinity for text-based logos. I think they're very effective. It's straight to the point. It's not confusing, and for a small business, I don't think it's a bad idea, because then at least your logo is your name, makes people familiar. But I think, as you're saying, for people that aren't as creative and they want something that's symbol-based or image-based, of course, for them, definitely reach out to someone, maybe get some advice, if not just getting them to do it for you. But I do think even, doing it in a sketch pad, drawing out different things. I mean, you don't need to be an artist to try and translate what you want it to look like, and if not anything else, at least that. So when you approach a graphic designer, you're not kind of, you have an idea in mind, and you can give them something that's a bit more tangible than saying, well, I'd like it to be like this. because I think that also leads to, you know, now you pay R1,000, you get the logo back. It's not what you envisioned. And now whose fault is that?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. It also saves a lot of time as well, right? For people.
Oh, absolutely. Because also, I mean, once you start relying on someone, now it's their timeline. You know, it can't be, okay, I'm going to have it done by the end of the week. You know, if you pay someone and they say, okay, well, you'll have it next Thursday. Now you're waiting on them, which also I think in the beginning of starting a business, you want to be on your own time to a certain extent.
Okay. What has been your most difficult client that you've had?
I would say I'm blessed in the sense that I don't have many clients that I would call difficult. I mean, I'm not in the most complicated industry. I think it's a case of, you know, someone sees something, if they like it, they want it, and they pay for it, and it gets to them. You know, at least there's not too much that can, you know, go wrong in that sense. But I think as far as difficulty, I mean, there are clients that, I mean, for instance, on my page, an item will be posted. There'll be a description for it, which will maybe be, for instance, Calvin Klein black puffer jacket. Then underneath that, the size. And then if, for instance, if it's a size XXL and I put it on and it's tight on me, then in brackets, I'll say fits large to extra large, you know. Like, because obviously I don't want to sell something, some guy, I mean, I had a guy the other day, 6'5", wanted to buy a jacket that was XXL, and he told me he was 6'5", and I had to say, sorry, listen, it's really not going to fit you. You know, it just won't fit you. So, I mean, as far as my difficult clients, it's more a case of, you know, some people, they see something is size XL, and they say, okay, but would this fit XXL? And now my question is, what's XXL? Your XXL, my XXL.
Yep.
It's not the same, you know. And
it's not the same. Yeah.
No, not at all. And I mean, now having dealt with so many different brands, I mean, you know, one brand's XXL is the next brand's large, and, you know, vice versa. So it's difficult to field those kind of questions, and it's, you know, it's as frustrating for me as it is for the customer. You know, I understand that frustration because I shop from stores just like myself. I mean, I buy from my friends, so I understand that frustration. The only thing I really do to ease that is I'm very willing to take photos of me wearing the item. I'm very familiar with taking selfie in the mirror, saying, you know, I'm this tall, I weigh this much, here's a bit of context. And if someone really wants it, I'm more than happy to measure things. I mean, I take the tape measure, I give a top to bottom, pit to pit, from the shoulder seam to the sleeve, to the cuff, you know, so I can give people those measurements. Obviously, it requires a bit of patience. I don't always have the stock handy, and I don't do those measurements for everything. You know, I mean, I only do that on request. But I think that's something that, you know, I think a lot of stores aren't willing to engage to that extent. If you say, well, you know, would this fit me? Here are my dimensions. You know, a lot of stores are more, okay, yes, I think it'll fit. It's an XL. You know, I'm willing to go the extra mile if someone wants something. It's obviously, I mean, this is probably the most difficult. It's obviously very frustrating when someone asks about multiple items. They ask for the measurements. I provide them with the measurements, and then they're not interested in any of them. You know, that for me is the most frustrating. I would say those are my most difficult customers, people that say, I'm interested in ABC, please measure them for me. I go through the task of measuring, etc. I respond, here are your measurements, and either it's, okay, no, don't worry, or I just don't get a response at all. It's just read and ignore, which that to me would be my worst customers. People that ask you to do something, I go out of my way to do it, and then, you know, to receive a no response, it's frustrating, but it's part of the learning curve. You have to, you know, you have to learn to just, I mean, I would be prone maybe a couple of years ago to say, you know, hey, you know, kind of respond now, please. But you have to just learn, you know, sometimes people aren't going to respond, and it's a part of the game. You can't get frustrated, and you can't act out, you know, because someone's now frustrated you on a personal level.
Yeah. So how much of sales do you do on a weekly? Is it a weekly basis, or is
So
it are you busy?
yeah, to an extent. I try at the moment. I mean, I try now. I do 2 drops a month. Roughly. So I'll do a drop. I'll do a release just after payday. So I mean, I actually did one. What's the date today? Sunday. I did one on Friday at 5 p.m. 26th.
Okay.
So I mean, but that also, I'll run a poll on the Instagram asking my followers, hey guys, would you prefer this date or this date? And then the majority, wherever the majority lies, I say, okay, that's the day.
Okay.
So, but I try and do 2 releases a month. Or release of between 18 and 24 items, because I've done in the past I've done more, but I feel like it's hard to consume. I think people struggle to, when I mean, in the beginning of the year, I celebrated 2020 with a release of about 52 items, and that it was very counterproductive, because people just don't have the attention span to go through all of that, and it floods their timeline, and it's difficult to consume. So for me, the sweet spot is between 18 and 24. But yeah, so I try and do, it equates to more than 1 item a day for a month. So 1 release just after payday, and then like a release 2 weeks later. So I released on Friday, the 26th, and my next release is planned for the 10th.
Okay.
So, I try and do that. But of course, some months you have more stock than others. Some months I can afford to just do 3 drops in a month. I mean, at the moment, I could potentially do another release this coming Friday, because I have so much winter stock. I don't know what to do with it all. I've got so many jackets, and I mean, I have a stock room at my mother's house in Joburg, and it's just metro file boxes from the floor to the ceiling, just packed with jackets. And now I sit with that. So I try that twice a month, because I think I try and give the customers a bit of warning and a bit of time to almost prepare. I don't want to release things and then people have just spent money on something else, and now they think, oh damn, but I really wanted to buy that and now I can't. So I'll advise people maybe 10 days to 14 days prior. I'll say, hey guys, release coming, whenever. Save up. If you're looking for something, please message me. I might be able to get it for you. Otherwise, just save up, and you'll see it all when it comes. Because I think it's, especially now, I think there's a bit of preparation required. If you're thinking,
I'm sure.
If you're thinking, I need to buy a winter jacket, I think you'd like 5 days notice before knowing when it's going to be available.
Yeah. No, definitely.
I try and, I think that to me is just more being courteous to customers. I don't want them to, now feel like, oh damn, but I was actually really hoping to get something, and now because I wasn't informed, I've now spent money on something else, and now I miss out. So yeah.
How do you see this type of business growing? Do you think it's something that South Africans can embrace? Do you think people should see what this type of business is worth? Because you don't really get a lot of thrift shops available or online. It's very rare. I mean, I met you about a month ago, and it's the first time I ever heard of something like this, right? I mean, I think, Jace, if there's one thing that I can say to you, is that you need to put it more out there, because it's not a well-known type of business. It's not something that people can relate to.
Yeah. But I mean, I must say, South Africa as a market probably has the biggest gap for it. I mean, in the US, this is a concept that's not unfamiliar whatsoever. I mean, in the US, the idea of a thrift shop, a big wholesale thrift shop, that's very familiar. We have a couple of those here as well. But then even more boutique style thrift shops like myself, but I mean, in America, I mean, they exist in brick and mortar. They are retailers that sell exclusively vintage, thrifted, secondhand clothing, you know, and I mean, they bringing in far more than what the local shops do. I mean, obviously because it's far easier for them to access the clothing, but I mean, they can afford, you know, three guys could come together, their love of thrift and vintage clothing, three guys could come together and put enough money together to buy themselves a brick and mortar location and start operating. Whereas in South Africa, that's not the reality. You know,
why do you think it's so different? I mean, I don't really like to compare first world countries to third world countries, right? But knowing that we are a third world country and knowing that how our social economy is going down, why would you think people would not be interested? Is because it's secondhand, because it's labeled secondhand?
Well, so you see, this is where I have strong opinions about why we should be embracing this business model, you know.
Yeah.
Firstly, of course, I mean, this is the only way to shop sustainably. There is no such thing as sustainable production of clothing. There is no such a thing. It's you know, no matter how recycled or whatever, if you are producing more units than what the market demands, it's unsustainable. And that's everyone. There's no one that can say that they're not, because no brand on earth that's a name brand is producing to meet demand. They're producing what they assume demand to be, or as much as they think they could create demand for. And there's always left over. I mean, there's a very obvious reason why factory stores exist. It's to deal with excess, you know, and that's why those factory stores, even they deal with excess. You know, there's items that will stay in the factory store for months, if not years, because no one wants it, you know, and then what happens to it? We don't really know. More often than not, it ends up in a landfill, which is, I mean, in South Africa alone, I think, because I did my honors, my final assignment was on sustainability in the fashion industry, or the lack thereof, you know, and the conclusion is, if you are not producing to meet a very specific demand, you're unsustainable. You know, the only way to be sustainable is to produce less and to buy things that are not produced recently. You know, I mean, I can safely say that there's not a single jacket in my cupboard that was produced probably after 2010. You know, I haven't owned or bought fast fashion for years now. You know, I don't shop at the mall. I mean, there's a few things that, of course, you know, because it's not so easily available secondhand, I'll still buy firsthand. Examples of those are jeans. You know, I think a pair of jeans, and even that, I mean, a pair of jeans you can wear for 10 years. I mean, I've inherited my father's Levi's that he bought in 1990. You know, and those are still perfect. I wear them now, so you can wear them forever. But I mean, the reason to embrace the business model is this is the only way to shop sustainably. It's the only way you can shop and actually feel like you're truly, you know, taking the environment into consideration, because you're not buying things that were produced this year. You're not buying things that were produced last year. And you're also not buying things that there's 10,000 items of. I mean, everything that comes on my page is one of one in its own right. You know, it's not something you can walk into the shop and buy. You know, it came from the US or Italy or Germany, and it somehow found its way here, and now you have access to it.
I think, you know, what's definitely underestimated is the sustainability of clothing, right? And you really do make a very great point in that, I must say. A lot of, and it's a mindset shift. It's not something that, you know, you can teach, you know, these old dogs new tricks type of thing, and they're willing to accept it type of thing. And trust me, it is a painful process, right? Do you think the youth is addressing the sustainability of clothing better compared to the older generation?
Well, I mean, if I were to generalize, I would say that definitely the youth is more aware of how unsustainable most brands are. I mean, you look at fast fashion, you look at, I mean, your everyday retailers, you know, Zara, H&M, Cotton On, while they're all doing things to adopt sustainability in their business model, their business model by nature is unsustainable. You know, to produce new items every couple of weeks, I mean, and that is the rate of production for them. And the amount of those items that, you know, they hit the sale rack, then no one buys those, then where do they go? and no one thinks about that. I mean, we had case studies, brands like Lacoste, with their shoes that don't sell in season, they literally just take them to a factory, guys with a carpenter blade, and they just slice a hole in the side, and they pretty much dump them, and they just slice them so that they can't be sold secondhand or given out, so that they kill their own stock so that it holds no value, rather than giving it. I mean, it's terrible to say almost, and it'll dilute the value of your brand, but wouldn't it be ideal if there were 10,000 pairs of shoes that didn't sell, and you just went to the streets, and homeless people that need pairs of shoes, you just hand them out, and of course brands won't, but
Jace, I must say, something came to me right now. I think you need to approach the retailers. Here's my thought. So go with me here, right? So go with me. Sorry. Listen, when I have an idea, it just flows in my head, right?
No, let's go.
So I'm an entrepreneur by nature, by heart, and I can go with an idea that's presenting to myself, right? And this is me. You triggered me now when you said about the retailers. You should approach your model to the retailers and see how they look at sustainable clothing. Pitch your model and to see if they'll partner up with you. You'll be surprised what happens.
Yeah. Because
pick one. Yeah. And you know why I'm saying one? Take cotton on.
Yeah.
Take cotton on. Get a business model. I'm happy to help you with that, by the way. Get a business model. Take the thrift model. Put the consignment on. Pitch it to them and see what they say. I'm telling you now, the concept of sustainable clothing is something that does need to be addressed, especially in our economy and where we sit right now. And if you can partner up with one clothing store or one brand, and to see how that builds into something bigger, because I can tell you something now, okay? What really, really comes to mind is that if one brand sees how it can work, you're gonna see what's gonna happen.
Yeah, of course.
Do you see what I'm envisioning or what I'm seeing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I do.
I can see that look on your face. Listen, there's a lot of people out here that has a lot of connections and a lot of things. I think look at the model that you have. Whether you do a thrift shop for cotton on, how's that?
Yeah. You see, so I mean, one thing I've noticed now with our market that almost is to an extent, it's the difference between our thrift and vintage market as opposed to the US and the UK. So of course we don't have as strong access to branded thrift in the sense of, getting your Nikes, your Polo, Adidas, Champion, those kind of brands, the brands that the youth are, of course, attracted to. And that's almost the difficult part, because I think people are willing to justify purchasing secondhand if it's something that's rare and seemingly unattainable at retail. If it's something they know that they could get in South Africa in a walk-in shop, the interest is immediately lost. It's as soon as it's only when something is, and it was my affinity with the thrift as well. It was completely unattainable. I knew that everything that I bought was one of one, and that if I bought it, no one else had it. And I see that in my business. There are things that I take on consignment that are, for instance, recently I had consignment from a customer, and there were 2 items that were made by local brands, but made in 2016. And those items have gotten almost no interest. And I think it's surely because someone looks at it and they say, oh, but wait, that was available there in 2016 or whatever. I could have gotten that then if I wanted it, so I don't want it.
I hear what you're saying. I think the way that you're going to sell this model is sustainable clothing.
Yeah.
That's the trick. It's about how you present the model to any brand that you foresee. It's not to say you're going to have duplications in item. It's about giving them a different model to tap into. Which is not something that they're thinking about, Jason. Hear what I'm saying to you. They don't think about sustainable clothing. But what you are doing is driving a different type of traffic to the brand.
Yes.
At a cheaper, lesser, affordable, more comfortable rate where people are going to say, okay, you see where I'm going with that?
No, I do.
I gave you a different model right now, okay?
Yeah, it's just odd. It's odd to me that what I call overproduction, that it still happens. That's but for me that's a very for a brand, it's a very self-centered profit-based model. It's the case of, let's make 5,000 so that we can potentially sell 5,000. If we don't, it doesn't matter. If we only sell 1,000, it actually covers the cost of the 5, and we can dump the rest.
But that's where you come in.
Yeah.
But that's where you come in.
Yeah.
So it's the way you negotiate what happens to that other piece that they're going to dump. Yeah. So whether what you can do is you can either approach the brand companies as an individual, or you can approach multiple brands and say, let's do a trial and test on this. Yes. Let me propose this consignment for you on the wastage that you have or on the things that's not selling, and let me use that consignment and see what happens.
Yes. No, yeah, okay. Now I have a clearer understanding of what you're talking about. Okay.
Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I must be honest, I think for some brands, as long as there's some description of profit attached to that model, yes, they think to themselves also...
You'll sell it. You're going to sell it.
And also, because you're taking things off their hands and it's no longer their problem.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the driving force. Because as soon as they can say, okay, that's yours now, it's not our problem anymore, good luck to you.
Yeah.
It's really like that.
But do you see where I'm going with it, right?
Yeah.
You can take it to... You see? I told you, I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I take an idea and I work with it, and I take it and I put it onto a different level. That's how I am. I see something that you wouldn't see.
Yeah.
It can work if you tap into it. It'll definitely work. It can expand and it can grow just like that.
And with the
because
right
you're taking,
with the right brands, it could be a huge thing.
Listen, there's a lot of people that's on open mic that can help you do what you need to do. I can tell you that much. There's a lot of people that we are all connected with that we will be able to help to get you, because it's not only helping you, it's not only helping retailers, but it's helping the South African economy to look at sustainable clothing and a shift in mindset in a different form and different way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to say I hoard clothing. I like having lots of clothes, and I don't mind buying a new item of clothing every month, for instance. Mm-hmm. But that mentality, if you're shopping how I'm shopping, you can sleep well at night, because you're not buying things that were made this year. You're not buying things that were made last year. You're buying something that's already lived a life with someone else. Now it's coming to you. But if you are, if you're the type of person that's every other weekend or every other month, you're spending a day in the shopping mall just to buy things off the rail, off the rack, and fill your cupboard, and then, what you bought 3 weeks ago now sits and gathers dust. That is something that seriously needs to be reconsidered. And I think the root of it is how people value clothing. People buy clothing because they want to wear it for a little while and they want to get rid of it, rather than buying something thinking to themselves, I'm buying this because I like it and because it will last. Which is also where brands get lost. They don't make clothing to last anymore, because why would they want you to keep a pair of jeans for 10 years and not buy another pair? They want things to be disposable to a certain extent, so that you have to repeat the purchase, which is, it makes sense profit-wise. It's a money-making scheme, but the earth is pretty evidently saying something needs to change. You know, I mean, fashion is the
Absolutely.
second highest polluting industry, only to oil.
Yeah.
And
So hence why I'm saying you have a huge business case on your hands. You've got potential to take this. Listen, I've worked for a big retailer, so I have access to one for you.
Okay.
I've used to work for one, so I have access for you. Okay. But I think you do need to look into sustainable clothing. I think it's something, if you have a look at from a COVID perspective and what COVID has done, it's made the world stand still for a reason.
Yes.
Okay. It stood still for a reason. It stood still first, exactly, for the environment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, can it be more obvious? Can it be more obvious? Hey?
Yeah, I mean, I think to myself, I would hate to be a retailer right now sitting with a couple thousand units of stock.
Yeah. And they're sitting with it.
Yeah.
And they're sitting with it, right?
Normal, everything goes back to normal. People aren't going to want that because that's last month's stuff. They're going to want the new things. Yep. Now, where does all of that go?
Yep, it's the wastage, right? What do you do with the wastage? You should be helping the economy to grow. I can see that light bubble in your eye.
Yeah, just thinking.
Listen, if I can tell you, you can make something what you want to see if you can see where it's going. If you have people that have visions, that can see bigger picture, that can create something out of nothing, that's basically what it is. And I can tell you this much, what I've just mentioned to you can hit the market into a different way and approach. Sustainable clothing, I don't think people even thought about what you've just said.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I didn't think about it. I mean, when I started the business, sustainability was not something that I was considering. It was sheer, no one else can get this. It's one of one. I want to have it. And then as I began to get more and more, and I mean, when I did my honors last year, that's when the light bulb really went off, and I thought to myself, when I was doing the research and I saw, I mean, our landfills are 93% full. Almost 80% of those landfills, it's textile and clothing waste.
Yep.
You think about that. You think about all the chemicals that are in cotton. It goes into the soil. Now it's polluted water sources, and this all begins with, I bought this shirt a couple of months ago. I don't want it anymore, and you put it in the dustbin.
You got your story, hon. You have your story.
And
put yourself in front of some board members, put yourself in front of the CEO, and I can tell you they're gonna bite because they're struggling right now and they don't have a plan and they don't have a model as to how do I look at the world differently. Let me tell you, no one has looked at sustainable clothing in South Africa the way you're looking at it right now. If they have, not to the picture that you're looking at it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, the factory store model, the whole, if it doesn't sell here in the retailer, we just
doesn't work.
It's that's almost a lazy attempt at what I'm pushing. It's you're discounting it, but you're not discounting it enough for it to be hugely viable, nor hugely, desirable. But you don't know what else to do with the stock, and it needs to sit on a brand's conscience. I mean, one of the things that I thought about was, if you buy an item of clothing from a brand, they should be responsible for that item of clothing until it is thrown away. It should be their responsibility. You should be able to go to a retailer and say, hi, I bought these items 10 years ago. They've now got holes, stains, etc., etc. It's your time to dispose of them, because you created them, you sold them to me. It's not my responsibility to make sure that they don't end up being a pollutant. It's actually yours, because no one. It's an expensive model, but it needs to be thought of that way. You can't, as a retailer, once someone puts it in the bag and it's been scanned, you can't then clean your hands of that item of clothing. If that ends up in the ground and it pollutes the soil, that should be on your conscience as a retailer.
Yeah, they're not thinking it from that perspective. I can tell you that now. I mean, myself being in retail for 2 years, they don't think about it themselves, not at all. Guys, if you have any questions, comments, some thoughts for Jason, please send it through. Karen, thanks for joining, Karen. It's good to see you again. I'm not too sure. Amina, if you're online, if there's anyone that want to send some thoughts and questions for Jason while he's wrapping up, please send it through so that we can just wrap up this call. I do appreciate it. Jason, I want to say thank you so much. I think you are doing something really, really great, something that is really going to take, I think, the world by storm, but I think South African economy by storm. I think if you keep going at it, and if you keep chasing what you want to chase and believe in that, you know what, you can get to what you need to. And I think you can really make a difference from a sustainable perspective. It is a model that I don't think people have really thought about. I really don't think that they've thought about. And coming from someone as young as yourself and putting something like this together and to get to where it needs to be, it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. In the next 5-10 years, people shouldn't be, fast fashion shouldn't be a word. It shouldn't be a term that's floating around at all. Everything should be, made with the end of it in mind, and you should buy things with longevity in mind. It shouldn't be disposable. Clothing needs to be seen with value, and it can't be something that can go in the dustbin once you're done enjoying it.
And listen, there's a lot of people that I know. I've worked with a lot of people. I've said this to you. I come from different industries. I've worked with 5-6 different industries around. I have a lot of people that I can get in contact. Amina is a very special friend of mine. And Amina is saying, your advice was fantastic, Seshni. A very good advice from Seshni. So hear what I'm saying with you.
Yeah.
What I've just said to you is something that you need to explore, and it's something that you need to work on very quickly, knowing where we currently are at right now.
Yeah.
Because with people have lost their jobs, people don't have income, people need to sustain themselves. You are going to tap into something that you would not even imagine what I just said to you right now. What I'm seeing right now is something probably you touched on, but what I'm seeing right now is much bigger than what you think it is.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay?
Yep. We'll be in contact. We'll definitely be in contact.
Listen, when I met you, I did say to you, there is something that I don't know what it is, but there's something about you that is drawing me, and I realize what it is now.
Well,
did I not say that to you? Did I not say that to you?
Absolutely.
I did. Yes, I did. And there's a reason for that. And I think there was a reason why you had to come back onto open mic in order for me to give you and say to you what I just said to you right now.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I really do.
Listen, I am here to help you. I say this to all the people that come into open mic. I've said this on the youth talks as well. We've had 2 youth talks. I encourage a lot of people to come through and just share their stories and stuff. When we share our stories with people, we have greater connections, and we meet people that is supposed to be presented in our paths.
Yep.
Okay? And when you share your story, it opens up something that people not necessarily sees, but the way you would inspire someone to do something more than themselves is what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So, and that's the thing, right? If you could do that, and if you can touch, and I can tell you this much, Jason, you could have come back and said, I know I was on this talk, and this lady just, and I can tell you right now, and I can see that headline. I can just see this headline. And this lady and I, she just, we went on the storytelling platform, and she inspired me, and this whole conversation went about how am I going to now expand this thrift place? And I can tell you something, it's much bigger than what you think it is, because of the way that I'm seeing it right now, it can change people's lives. And I can tell you this much, it's going to actually create more jobs.
Yeah. And that's also end goal. That's really end goal. Employment, definitely. And I think this is a market that's yet to be explored, and there's a lot of money and a lot of employment opportunity that's yet to be tapped.
And if you go through this, and if you're gonna get these brands on, you're gonna create jobs. You're gonna actually create more jobs. You're gonna tap into something where people didn't realize on something that is much bigger than themselves right now.
Well, fingers crossed. It's not just clothes. Yeah,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. You know, it's more than just clothing. It really is.
But
there's more
the
to it.
model that you're presenting from a sustainable clothing perspective will go a long way.
Absolutely.
Long way. And remember, it's generations that's also being brought up and being taught right now, right?
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, I'm always happy when I have younger customers. I mean, I have some guys that are shopping from me, they're in grade 9, grade 10, and I'm thinking, when I was that age, I didn't, you know, if someone said, you want to buy secondhand clothing, I would have said, I'm not going to buy someone else's garbage, you know. But now, you know, I think when young guys like that, they want something, and the fact that it's secondhand, it doesn't deter them. That to me is just, you know, that's exactly it. Hopefully by the time they're my age, they only shop secondhand. You know, that's the end goal.
You do need to get some testimonials from your customers.
Yes, absolutely.
These testimonials are going to help you. You know, when you're going to be standing and presenting at these CEOs, and you're going to stand and presenting at your brands, you need these people's words to echo to them.
Yeah.
Because customers testimonials is actually key to what you need to do right now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that 150 loyal people that's coming, start getting them on the line and start telling them to give you some reviews. Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. And before we wrap up, I just want to say to everyone that's watching, obviously, if you need winter clothing, Redo Clothing Co. on Instagram, REDUX Clothing Co. And no punctuation, nothing. Check us on Instagram. We have a lot of winter stock available currently, and there's going to be even more available in the coming weeks. Tell your friends, you know, if you have kids, tell your kids. Let's kill fast fashion right now. Let's just be done with it. And support local, support small businesses. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know what you need to do? So I know you are following the Instagram page on Open Mic. On the Open Mic for Women group, I don't think you're on the Facebook. Are you on Facebook?
No, I haven't used Facebook since I was much younger.
Send the details on Instagram. Put it onto where your post is, okay? What I'm going to do for the listeners is to copy your stuff down in there and to put it onto Facebook for you on this group, because most of the users are sitting on this group here, okay? And then I'll post it in for you. So respond there, and then what I will do is I'll copy it and I'll put it onto this group for you, okay?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to that call.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say, I'm keen to have more conversations.
Yeah, I said to you. So I'm sure we'll catch up soon. All right. 100%. Guys, thank you so much for joining. We have finished the month of June. Looking forward to next month's talks. I mean, July is the month of transformation. We're looking at entrepreneurs. You set the bar high. We're looking at the changes and you know, what as people having, you know, discovered with themselves, you know, going through this whole phase and the lockdown. What are some of the changes? What are some of the transformational things that has happened to oneself during this time? We're going to be addressing, you know, some of the things that has helped people to go into a transformation and go into the change in terms of adapting. And we're looking forward to the month of July. And I want to say, Jason, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed it. Really, really good. All right. Thank you so much. We'll chat soon. Cheers, guys.
Definitely. Cheers.
Bye.